Hello everyone, and welcome to week number 5. In this week presentation, we're going to discuss some useful tools. And by this week or by the end of this PowerPoint, you will be successfully done with the whole curriculum of Tinkercad. So today we're going to discuss slicing process, importing files, exporting files, and how to turn your object into a physical 3D object. So let's say, for example, you're creating your final project with the art. At this case, you're going to turn it into a 3D modeling using the 3D printer. Last but not least, we're going to know how to invite friends to edit our project in case if you have a colleague who works at the same project, but there's slight difference between you and your colleague. At this case, I will invite others to either edit or fix parts of my project. Now I'm going to Tinkercad and I'm going to create a new 3D design. Now we're going to start first of all by using the slice tool. Now what is slice tool? Slice tool usually is used if you have a large product. So let's say for example, my product is succeeding the space of my 3D printer. At this case, I cannot print all of it at once. So what I have to do, I have to cut my product into parts after finishing the product. And at this case, I can print it on a small scaled 3D printer. So to do this, let's just get a mockup from Tinkercad itself and see how we can cut it into parts so we can print it. So I'm gonna start going to the basic shapes over here, and I'm going to create or looking for a creatures and characters. So in here, as you see, you have too many creature and characters. To get more, all you have to do is even select or more shapes, or either going to a character and just look for the character you would like to get. For my case, I'm just gonna click all at this body point, and then I'm gonna click more shapes until I get the desired shape that I would like to get. So for now, let's say for example, I'm selecting any of those characters. Let's say for example, I'm using a ghost shape, or I'm using a full body shape, or let's have this penguin over here, for example. Now, as you see here, I'm having the penguin right here. And let's say this penguin is quite larger than the 3D printer. Now, I'm going to give you a few minutes to add your character, and we'll carry on. Now, after you added your shape, let's slice this character into parts. So at this case, I can print each of those parts separately. So to do slicing, you have two ways to do that. You either go to your basic shapes and just select your basic cube or a box and then add it to different parts of the character and just cut part of it. Or instead of using this shape, you can use a whole shape. So both of them works exactly the same. So either I'm gonna use the shape and turn it into whole, or I could use the whole shape straight on to add part of your character where you need to cut your character in this case. Now, remember one thing, if you're having a moving part within your characters or within your object, you need to print those separately. So you need to have a hinges or something that moves. So at this point, this process is not going to be working perfectly. So any moving parts, you should add them separately away from your character. So at this case, you can print them and just attach them to your product. And your product at this case will have a movement part. Now, let's just delete at the moment this box, and I'm just gonna use a hollow box. Now, before I do this, I need to know how many parts of my characters I'm going to cut or take off or slice, as we call it slicing process. To do so, let's say for example, I'm going to cut part of this penguin by cutting the wings, the head, the body, and I might cut those two for as well, or those 2 feet, just to make sure they are attached to my penguin in case if I'm having a moving part. So to do so, I need to count how many of those objects you're going to cut. So let's say we're having the head, so that's number one. I'm having the wings, so that's number two, three, so I'm having the two wings. I have the body, that's number four. And then I have the 2, 4, 5, and 6. So I'm having now 6 parts. That's how I cut out of my character. Now to do this, all I have to do is just dragging my character towards the edge of my workspace and then just duplicate it a couple of times. So I'm gonna duplicate it 6 times. So that's 1, that's 2, just duplicate 3. There we go. 4. There you go. 5. And last but not least, 6. So I'm having now 6 characters that laid next to each other, so I know how many parts I'm going to cut. Okay, so let's start with the first one right here. So going into this first character here, I need to cut only the wing. So to do so, I need to align the characters. So I will just select the both characters. But before I start cutting those characters, I need just to wait for a couple of minutes until all of you add your characters or add your object and then duplicate them multiple times. Now, getting back again to your character, at this point, I'm going to cut the wing only. So I'm not going to just go over the wing and just get my whole cube to get the shade over the wing. Instead, what I will do is I'm just going to get my cube to be turned into the side, and I'll make sure that my cube is when go all the way up and it covers my body. So I'm just going to go over here, just add it right in, and then get the cube to be a little bit bigger. So in this case, it covers the head. I'm just gonna push it all the way down using one of those side, again, vertex point. Here you go. You see, as long as I'm moving, it's not moving up and down. So I just gonna press D on my keyboard, and then I'm using this arrow over here just to drag it all the way up. So I'm extruding it all the way up. Here we go. Great. So at this point, I still have some of the side that's showing. So I'm just gonna use a different points to cover the full body. As you see here, the length is not still covered. So I'm just gonna zoom out a little bit. Here we go. And I'm still having part here. I'll show you how we're gonna cut this. I'm just gonna go on the other side over here. Fully. Here we go. So this is fully included. All right. And the back. Perfect. So now I'm having most of the shape is covered. However, I just need to drag this a little bit to the back because I need to start the wing. Perfect. Now what I'll do, I will select those two shapes by just click and drag. So I'm selecting the two shapes and I'm going to group them. Now, as you clearly see here, I still have part of my penguin that is showing, and this is why we call it slicing. So I'll give you a time, a few minutes to apply this, and then I'm gonna carry on removing the other bits and parts of this penguin. 3 2 1. Okay, so at this case, I'm still having some parts here that I did not remove yet. So simply what I can do is using again the cube, just dragging the cube up to cover the wing. And as you see here, the wing is covered by the cube. So all I have to do is select both. And make sure when you select the both, you'll be very accurate. Otherwise, you might select other characters. Same to the flooring here. So I'm going to add another cube here. Select the cube and then go over the bottom part. And I think that takes a little bit of time, but if you have a symmetrical object, at this case, it'll be easier for you to copy the object twice. So I'm just going to go over here, and this is covering most of my penguin side. There we go. So I'll select those two and then group. So I'll do the same pretty much for most of them except this part over here. So this part a little bit tricky for me. So I'm just going to go step by step through this part. Now, if I'm using the pen at this case, now pen here is trying to draw a line. But if you go over here and use the curved pen, so in this case, what we'll do is it will give you a curve, you click and just drag and it gives you kind of a curve. However, if I'm curving that way, that means the penguin side wing that it has kind of a curve. So this side wing will go over here. It doesn't matter what exactly I'm drawing after because actually I'm trying to get the side wing. Once you go happy with this, just hit finish sketching. And you will have this part over here, which I can rotate actually and cover the wing. Now to do so, all I have to do is dragging it to the side. Here we go. So I cover part of the wing and then I'm going to cover it as well. I'm going to rotate it again to the top. And I will try to add this to the wing. See that I'm trying as much as I can. You can use the rotation just to rotate free rotation. Here we go. I'll zoom in a little bit. I'll make sure this is covering the wing properly. Here we go. So I'm having here the wing. This is covered perfectly. So all I have to do now is getting this shape to be a hole and then select the two shapes together and just group them. Now I'm having one wing that is ready to be attached. Now, instead of copying this or doing this again to the second wing, all I have to do is just to get rid of one of the characters. Here we go. I could get this wing and just duplicate it. And then after this, I could just drag it away from the wing that I'm having at the moment. Also, I can mirror it. So once you mirror, you're going to find those three arrows. So I'm going to use the one right in the middle. Here we go. So now I'm having the two wings. Now I can drop them in the floor using D for drop. So I'm having those two wings. But if I'm printing these two wings, in this case, I'm having a problem. Because again, the wing here standing on the tip of it. So this doesn't work. So what we'll do is, I'm just going to go back here, Control Z or undo at this case. And what we'll do, I'm just going to drop this in the floor. Here we go. I'm going to rotate it where it will be attached to the floor. Perfect. So this is attached properly to the floor. And as you see here, it shows you a flat. That means this is attached to the floor. And at this case, I will use exactly the same what I've done in a minute. Duplicate. Move it to the side. Using mirror. And then just rotate it to the other side. Now let me give you a few minutes to do this and then we're going to carry on. Okay, so I'll move on to the next part of the penguin, and this is pretty easy part. I'm just gonna use again the whole cube, and I will use the head only. So simply what I will do is drag in my cube and make sure if you have a penguin that will select the top and the bottom part, all you have to do is select two penguins next to each other. So two of the characters will be next to each other. And put those away so we can see this too. Okay, so I'll drag first of all the head. So I'm just gonna drag it toward the penguin. Just maximize it to cover the penguin side and then the penguin width. Now, if you look at that way, you can see the penguin is fully covered with the whole cube. Now, I need to cut this into two halves. So what we'll do is I'm just gonna go to cover the body. In this case, here we go. Let's say I'm gonna cover up to here. Perfect. And then I'm going to duplicate this cube, move it toward the other penguin, and then what I will do, I will try to get the cube to cover the head. Now, I know this is a little bit complicated, but what we can do actually, we can just drag it all the way up to cover the head. Here we go. And just look at this sideways to see how those two are fitting into each other. So at this case here, I can move it a little bit up and just drag this a bit down. So I'm just going to go here and just drag it down. Now, if you look properly, you're going to find the head is covered mostly, but is not covered fully. So I'm just going to go over here again and just drag this even more down. Now, looking at the line of the head, that is perfectly aligned with each other. Perfect. So now I'm having the penguin head is covered, the body is covered, and we're going to do the same what we've done to the wing, but using the bottom part. So all I have to do is select both and group. Perfect. I'll do the same over here. Select the both and group. Perfect. So now I'm having the wings left. Now, of course, some of you will say, you know what? We can cut the wings before we cut the head and the body. And I believe this is a great idea if you do so. Yes, it will work still. So I'm going to get another hole. And I'll get the box to cut the wings. See that? So it's just attaching to the body. I'm just going to get it out. Just attach this part over here so we can actually fit the wing if we have an hinge. So push it just one more. Perfect. Now I'm going to duplicate the cube. Just pass it through to the other part of the wing. Duplicate. Just pass it through the other penguin. Again, duplicate and pass it through to the other part of the penguin. So now here, that works for me, and that works for me. Perfect. So all we have to do is selecting those two. But remember, look, if I'm selecting those two here, look what happened to the back. I'm selecting 3 penguins. So instead, I can actually look at the top view and then selecting my 3 objects. So in this case, those 3 objects are selected. So what we'll do now, I will use again a grouping tool. So now I'm having the top view, and this is where the attachment of my wings will go. I'll do the same over here. Select those 3 and then group them. Perfect. So now if you look at the penguin, if I move the head toward the body, it's perfectly fitting. Now, let me drop the head on the floor. So I'm having now 1 head, 1 body, 2 wings. So in this case, I'm having 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm having 5 or 6, which is the 4. So what we'll do here, I could drag the penguin and notice how the foot is just away from the penguin, just taking out a little bit of the penguin. So I'll do exactly the same what I've done with the pen tool. So I'm going to use a kind of a curve, and then I'll cut this out of the penguin, but I'm just going to get a bigger shape outside. So before I do this, let me give you a few minutes to apply the slicing to your object or to your product. this, I will do something smarter by getting a kind of a cylinder and just select this cylinder to fit my penguin body. Perfect. So that's from one side. That's from the other side. This is outside. And this is outside still. Now I'm having here kind of a cylinder around my penguin. I'm just gonna move this toward my other penguin. Just make sure this is selected properly. So in here, this is selected. However, it's not selected from the outside part. So I'm just gonna select it from the outside part as well here. There you go. So I'm having it now around my penguin. So all I have to do is group them. Perfect. Okay. And now using the whole cube, just to remove the remaining parts of the penguin. We go. Just gonna drag it all the way up. Perfect. Just drag it down until it match my penguin. Make sure you're not touching the foot. Now that doesn't touch the foot yet. However, if we move it a little bit down, I might cover the full body of the penguin. Here we go. Select both of them, group, and I'm left with the foot. Perfect. Now, as you see here, I'm still having a wing. That's fine. I can use again a cube just to drag it next to wing and get rid of it. Perfect. So now I'm left with the foot. So I'm having a foot body. And as you see here, those foot, I might copy them. So I'll duplicate them. Just add them on top of the other two foot over here. Get them to be a whole. And then enlarge them a little bit. So they kind of cover the full foot of the penguin. Select the two objects. And then group. Okay, it doesn't work much. It's fine. I can work my way around them until I make sure they are working perfectly. So I'm just gonna extrude them a little bit up. There we go. Push them toward the end part. You see, still not matching properly. So I'm gonna enlarge them a little bit so they are fitting within my object. Now, bear in mind, I can do this in two ways. So I could actually duplicate it, just push this away, and then group this once. Okay, so that's removed. And then drag this again into it. And then group it for the second time. But now, if you look at this, you might find this one is cutting part of my shape. It doesn't, however, sometimes it might does. So if that happen, you need to return again back to solids and then just delete one part of the foot and just carry on cutting your object. So selecting both objects, group, boom, and that should do. Still have a little part here, so I'm just going to push it to the side, inside a little bit. Over here, there we go. You see, I can see through because as long as this, let's do it that way. Gonna turn the solid, getting a cube, cutting this, and then I'm just gonna get this to be covering here. Pull, make sure this is covering properly. I could look at the top view of this, so I can tell if this is covering properly or not. Now you see, it's not covering properly here. So I'm gonna push it until it covers the foot. Now, group. Perfect. Now, it doesn't matter if you have a bit of pieces here, but again, I can do the same for this piece here. But let's say, for example, I'm having hinge here. So that will do. Okay. Now let me give you a few minutes to apply this. Now Kafka in all the slides of my penguin. Now those supposed to be selected 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 as we counted. So I'm gonna give you a few minutes to apply this and then I'll get back to you. Okay, so I'm gonna push this here to the side so we can carry on with our lesson. Here we go. So this is my penguin over here. We'll just move it away. All right. So at this point, we know now how to cut or slice our object. Now, there's a very useful website you can use, but you're not allowed to use it within your project. So you can use only for any reference or if you would like to add a compartment or components to your project or a decoration to your project. And this is called a thingiverse.com. So thingsverse.com at this case, it gives you a free 3D modeling, which you can actually select from a different objects and you can print them. Now, we need to know what SVG um, format is. Now, when it comes to 3D, once you finish your 3D and you need to import or export your file. So exporting the file at this case, let me just go back again to the penguin here to see how I'm going to export this. Let me just put this in the middle. So let's say I need to export this for the 3D printer. We have two ways of exporting. So we have the first way here is when I click in the export here, I could download it or I can send it to the 3D printer. So let's say I'm going to download it. Now, when you download, it says includes everything in the design or only selected shapes. So I'm going to use includes everything within the design because this is my workspace. Now, you can do this in Adobe Desk Fusion, but I'm not going to do this at the moment. So again, where I'm going to do it from, I'm having three options to print my 3D object on 3D printers. So the first one would be .opg in object. Second one is STL. And third one here, I'm having the GLTF. Now, I'm not going to use the last one at all, but I might print it as an object or STL stand object. Those two mainly, most of the 3D printers are compatible with. But at this case, if you look at the bottom here, you're going to find something called laser cutting. Now, laser cutting, it's kind of similar to the 3D printer. However, we talked this already in week 2. Laser cutting is using a laser beam to cut an object. So we're going to use one of those two instead. So I can download it as an object or STL. But someone would tell me if it's SVG, would it work in 3D printers? So, well, at the moment, unfortunately, no, because this is a 2D rather than 3D. So this is a slab that is laying flat on the floor and the laser will cut through them, so it will not work with the 3D printer. So instead, we can download it using an object or STL. So for most compatible devices, such as Windows and Mac, they use the STL, not an object. So STL, if I'm clicking on it, you're going to give you time to converting your object into a 3D printer object so the 3D printer can see it and print it. Now, this is the first exporting way towards different 3D printers. And the way how we do it now, we print it in this way or we bring the files in this way in case if I need to print it outside, for example, outside my office, outside my home. I don't have a 3D printer, so I have to do this one of those 3D printer shops and so on. However, if you do have a printer at home, a 3D printer that you would like to print your stuff on, you can do the same by going to export. And at this case, I'm going to click on 3D printer. Make sure you're selecting everything in the design. And at this case, you might select one of those printer. For example, for myself, I have a Robo at home. So I can click on Robo. And at this case, it tells you you're going to leave a Tinkercad and you're going to a 3D printer. So it prepares my design first. And then after this, it will send me to my printer where I can print my object. But for your case, not all of us do have a 3D printers. So I'm just going to cancel and return to Tinkercad at the moment. So at this point here, I'm having now my printer ready, and the penguin or the project or the product is sent to my printer where I can print it easily. All right. So finishing with exporting, let's now discuss import. Now, importing stuff to your 3D model is pretty easy. Let me just go to Tinkercad again. And as you see here, it's saving my model. And it's still going to export my model and I will send it to my computer to download it actually. So at this point here, let me just go to create 3D design. I'm going to rename this to import. All right. So at this case here, I need to import some of the designs as I can get from Thingiverse. So Thingiverse here, as I told you, this is a ready-made product for you. So let's say, for example, I'm using this skull over here. So first of all, it shows you how it look like and show you some images of the Tinkercad. So all you have to do is just download all files. And then after this takes you to downloading page, preparing 3 of 5. And then once it's done, it's going to go toward your computer and it will be downloaded straight on for you. I'll get back to you once it's downloaded. Right, so now it's downloaded to my computer. All I have to do is double click on it to extract the file. Once you extract it, as simple as this, you will have here different files, 1, 2, and as you see here, it says STL, and those are the images for your design. We don't need the images, we just need the files. So what I'll do over here, now download is complete. So I will go back to my Tinkercad. All you have to do is click on import. Now choose a file, going toward my download, then scroll down until I find my project. Now in here I'm having images and files, so I select files, just select both of them and then open. Now in here it tells you file too large. Remember one thing, Tinkercad's only limits to 25 megabyte. So at this case, make sure that you're selecting again a small file size. So let's say, for example, in here, this is quite large for me. So I might go back again to my website and search for something that is smaller in size, which is less than 25 megabyte. So in this case, I could print it. So let's say, for example, I'm having here, let's say here I'm having a 3D printer. And then I'm going toward one of those things. Need to make sure it's something easy and simple. Even the skull is quite easy, but it's larger than 25 megabyte. So let's say, for example, I'm having this keychain over here. Going to download it. Now this is downloaded. Just make sure to extract the file. Here we go. Now, once I extract the file, I'm having the file over here. So I'm just going to go to import, choose a file. And then instead of this file, I'm going to use either the keychain or this is zipper actually. Here we go. Okay, so it tells me this is millimeters. This is 24 megabyte. So as you see here, once I'm quite happy with this, I'm just going to click on import. Takes a bit of time to import it, and then you will find it applied to your workspace. Perfect. So I'm having now the object that is placed for me. So I could use it as a part of my project in case if I need to add this into the penguin, for example, to be hanged on my backpack, for example. So I could use this zipper clipper, in this case, to be clipped on my backpack. That's all for today. Hope you enjoyed this. But before I leave, I need just to make sure just adding one extra option in this case, which inviting others or grant an access for others to kind of work with your project or work with your Tinkercad so they can help you if you're facing any problems. So to do so, let's say for example, I'm done with this. All I need to do is clicking on this plus button right at the top. Look at this over here. Invite people to design with you. So if I click on this, it takes me here. So you're going to generate a new link. You're going to copy this link, and simply all you have to do is placing the link, sending the link to your friends. I'm just going to add here, for example, I'm going to show you how it look like. Just going to paste the link over here just to show you how it look like. So this is how does the link look like to you. Let me just put this a little bit down. Here we go. So this link would be sent to your friends at this point, so they can share again the Tinkercad link with you. So it gives you here an issue, and in this case, once they click on the link, they'll be able to edit the link with you. So in here, we'll show you how many people are kind of having a grant access to access your design. If you're not quite happy with them, all you have to do is click on it again, and it might show you how many people now inside. So you might remove them from your Tinkercad design in case if you done this by mistake. Thank you very much for your attention, and make sure please, I'm going to stick within week number 5, the projects, the integrated project with the art. Make sure please you stick into this. And if you have any question, please do not hesitate to email me. So please do email me. Do not send anything else but emailing, and I'll be quite happy to help within the next 2 weeks. Thank you very much and have a lovely day. Goodbye.